Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're kind of, lifting the veil on this whole other side of the business world, something that I think a lot of folks don't totally grasp. We're talking about silent partnerships.
hmm
You see these like overnight success stories, businesses just exploding, and it's like, hold on, how'd they pull that off without some big-time investor calling all the shots?
Right.
And the answer, it might just be one of these silent partners. They're the ones putting up the cash to get things moving, but they're doing it quietly, staying out of the day-to-day grind.
Yeah.
And to help us unpack all of this, we've got our expert here.
Hey.
So you've seen these partnerships up close and personal. For those of us who are, let's say, new to this whole silent partner thing,
Hmm.
what are the need-to-know basics?
Well, it is kind of funny, isn't it? Silent partners, they have this massive impact, but they're almost like these mythical creatures in the business world. People hear the term, but what it actually means,
Yeah.
not always so clear.
Right.
The core idea, though, is that they're providing capital. But it's not just about forking over a stack of cash. It's about doing it with the understanding that they're staying out of the actual business itself.
Okay, so we're not talking about your typical investor who wants to come in, throw their weight around, and shake things up. This is more about what targeted support.
Exactly. It's less about being at the helm, steering the ship, and a lot more about providing the fuel to set sail in the first place.
I like that the fuel metaphor. You touched on this a bit, but why would someone choose to be a silent partner? You'd think they'd want more control if they're the ones putting up the money, right?
Yeah, you'd think so. But for some people, it's about playing a different role. Maybe they've got the capital, but they don't have the time or the specific expertise to be super hands-on.
Interesting.
Or maybe they see this rock star entrepreneur and they think, hey, I trust them to make the magic happen. I'll just be the one who provides the resources.
It's more about strategic investment than trying to, like, mold the business in their own image.
You got it. They might offer connections, insights into the industry as a whole, but they're not involved in those day-to-day decisions.
That makes a lot of sense. But for the entrepreneur, the one on the receiving end of all this fuel, what are the biggest advantages? Especially for, say, a startup that's just trying to find its footing.
Well, imagine this. You're a founder, you've poured your heart and soul into this business plan, but funding, that's the brick wall.
Oh, yeah.
Banks, they're hesitant.
Hmm.
Venture capitalists, they want a piece of the pie and a say in how you bake it.
And that's a deal breaker for a lot of entrepreneurs, right? That loss of control.
Exactly. But with a silent partner, you get the financial boost without having to hand over the reins. It lets you stay true to your vision while still getting the resources to grow.
So there's a real appeal there for entrepreneurs who are truly passionate about their ideas. It's like having this financial backer who basically says, look, I trust your judgment.
It can be incredibly empowering. It's like having someone say, I believe in you. Here's the money. Go make something amazing. No micromanaging, not trying to dictate your every move.
Now, our research really emphasized this. Silent partners are generally passive investors. They're not involved in daily operations. That's a crucial distinction from active partnerships, right?
Oh, absolutely. An active partner wants to be in the trenches making decisions, being vocal. A silent partner, they're happy providing the capital and letting the entrepreneur run the show.
I'm curious, though, wouldn't a brand new business want to partner with, like, tons of experience to offer guidance, especially early on?
Yeah, it seems intuitive, right? But that's where really understanding the silent part is key.
Mm.
These partners, they might not have that hands-on experience in that specific industry.
Right.
What they do bring is that financial backing, maybe a network of contacts, things that help you grow without someone looking over your shoulder constantly.
So it's more about giving you the tools, not necessarily a handbook on how to use them.
Exactly. Think of it like this. You're a musician with raw talent, right? A silent partner is like someone who hears that talent, buys you top-notch instruments, maybe helps you get some gigs, but they're not trying to rewrite your songs. They trust your artistic vision.
That's a great analogy. It really highlights the trust involved. But let's be real, there have to be downsides to this kind of arrangement, right? It can't all be smooth sailing and hit singles.
Oh, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head there. No business arrangement is perfect,
Yeah.
right? There are always potential downsides. Silent partnerships, they're appealing, for sure. But it's super important to go in with your eyes wide open.
Okay, so let's talk about those potential downsides. What are some things that entrepreneurs, the folks actually running the business, should watch out for before they even think about a silent partner?
I think the big one is trade-offs. You're getting access to capital, which is amazing, don't get me wrong,
Well,
but you're also giving up a portion of those future profits. And if your business really takes
Those
off,
profits could be huge.
exactly. And how big a slice of the pie you're giving away, well, that depends on your agreement with the silent partner. It's not uncommon for them to take, say, 10%, sometimes even up to 30% of the profits.
Wow.
Yeah, if the revenue skyrockets, that adds up really quickly.
So negotiating favorable terms up front, that's got to be critical. You really
Yeah.
have to be comfortable with what that might mean down the line, right?
100%. It's
Yeah.
a balancing act. Getting the capital you need without signing away too much of your future earnings. That's where a rock-solid partnership agreement becomes absolutely crucial.
And our research really emphasized the legal side of things. Why is that so important? Even if the silent partner isn't involved in the day-to-day.
Because even though, yeah, on the surface it sounds simple, here's the money, you run the business, without clear legal guidelines, things can get really messy, really fast. A really comprehensive agreement, it protects both sides.
It's interesting.
Protects them from misunderstandings, from disputes, you name it, even potential legal trouble down the line.
So it's like a prenup for businesses. Hope for a happy marriage, but be prepared just in case things go south.
Exactly. And just like a prenup, it should cover a lot of different scenarios to prevent conflict later on. How are profits shared? What happens if there are losses? What if one party wants out of the deal? All of that needs to be crystal clear from day one.
Sounds like these agreements, they're serious business. Besides the profit sharing, the exit strategies, what else goes into these documents?
Defining the silent partner's role, or I guess lack thereof, is huge. We keep saying passive investor, but putting it down in writing is key. What are the limitations on their involvement in the business? Decision making? What about access to company information? All of that needs to be spelled out, no question.
So you're setting boundaries to make sure that silent, actually means silent.
Exactly. It's all about managing expectations and preventing, what we call scope creep. You don't want a silent partner suddenly wanting to chime in on every little thing just because they wrote a check.
Right. That defeats the entire purpose. Now, beyond the agreement itself, are there other things that entrepreneurs should keep in mind when they're considering a silent partner?
One thing that often gets overlooked is communication. Yes, they're hands-off operationally, but it's still important to keep them in the loop. Let them know how the business is progressing, financials, big wins, even the challenges.
So even though they're silent, it's not like they just disappear completely. Regular check-ins are still a good idea.
Absolutely. Think of it like providing, I don't know, a quarterly update, an annual report, even if it's just a casual coffee meeting to chat about things. That transparency, that open communication, it builds trust and prevents misunderstandings.
So it's really about cultivating a healthy relationship, even if it's not your typical, side-by-side partnership.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the importance of shared values and long-term vision. It goes beyond just their bank account. Do they believe in your idea? Do they trust your judgment? Are they genuinely invested in your journey, not just the financial outcome?
It's about finding someone who gets it, who's on board with the big picture, and trusts you to steer the ship.
Precisely. Someone who understands the vision and is content to be, your biggest cheerleader, not your backseat driver. And speaking of visions and success stories, our research uncovered some really big names that owe a lot to their early silent partners.
Yeah, the ones that make you go, man, I wish I thought of that. Let's dig into those. I mean, we all know Google, but I'm curious to hear more about their experience.
Oh, Google's a classic example. Hard to believe now, but back in the late 90s, they were just a couple of Stanford students. They had this revolutionary idea, tons of ambition.
Yeah.
But back then, securing funding for an internet company? Not as easy as it is today.
Right. The internet was still uncharted territory back then.
Yeah.
Investors weren't exactly tripping over themselves to throw money at every new search engine that popped up.
You got it. It was a risk. But then, enter Andy Bechtolsheim, an early investor in Sun Microsystems. He saw something special in Google's approach, something in their algorithm, and he wrote them a check for $100,000.
Seriously?
Yeah, even without a formal business plan.
Wow, talk about betting on the right horse. That's some serious trust in their vision.
Right. And that $100,000, it was a game changer. It let Larry Page and Sergey Brin actually register the company, buy the servers they needed to handle their rapidly growing user base. The rest, as they say, is history.
It's amazing to think that a relatively small investment from a silent partner had such a massive impact.
It really shows you the power of a well-structured silent partnership. And you know what? Google's not the only example. Another one that highlights this behind-the-scenes influence is WhatsApp.
WhatsApp. Man, another one of those names is basically a verb now, right? Like just
Right.
WhatsApp me. How did they go from this like scrappy startup to, global domination? And what was the role of the silent partner and all that?
Well, picture this. It's the early 2010s, and WhatsApp is this new player on the scene. They're trying to change how we communicate, right?
Yeah.
Their big idea, instant messaging anywhere in the world, but without those crazy SMS fees that everyone was used to back then.
Oh man, those were the days getting hit with like a massive bill just because you got a text from overseas. WhatsApp really did change everything.
Totally. But just like Google, they needed funding to really level up, to compete with the big dogs in the messaging world. That's where Jim Gertz enters the picture. He was a partner at Sequoia Capital, the legendary venture capital firm.
Sequoia. Okay, those guys are serious players. They must get bombarded with like a zillion pitches. What was it about WhatsApp that made them stand out?
It wasn't just the tech, though that was definitely innovative, and it wasn't just their rapidly growing user base either. What really impressed Gertz and Sequoia was the founders' almost laser focus on simplicity, on user experience. They wanted an app that was fast, reliable, and, dead easy to use, no matter what your tech skills were.
And honestly, that's still their thing, right?
Yeah.
Even with all the new bells and whistles, WhatsApp is still so intuitive.
Exactly. It's a testament to the founder's vision, which Jim Goetz clearly recognized. So when Sequoia invested, it was with the understanding that the founders, they remain in the driver's seat, they controlled the product and its direction.
So even with this like serious injection of capital from a VC giant, the WhatsApp guys were still calling the shots.
100%. It was a classic silent partnership setup. Sequoia, through Goetz, provided the fuel, but they trusted the founders to navigate. And wow, what a formula it turned out to be. Within a few years, WhatsApp was this global phenomenon with like hundreds of millions of users.
And then, of course, the grand finale, Facebook, or Meta as we know them now, buys WhatsApp in 2014 for a mind-blowing $19 billion.
It's staggering, right? It just goes to show, when you structure it right, when everyone's aligned on a shared vision, a silent partnership can lead to absolutely phenomenal outcomes.
These stories are definitely inspiring. But I'm guessing not every silent partnership ends in a multi-billion-dollar acquisition, right?
Right.
So for our listeners out there, whether they're entrepreneurs themselves or maybe they're thinking about becoming a silent partner, what are the big takeaways? What should they really keep in mind?
I think the most crucial thing is finding the right partner. It goes way beyond just the money. It's about shared values, belief in the vision, and a deep understanding of what a silent partnership actually means for both sides.
Like any good relationship, communication and trust are key.
Couldn't agree more. And legally speaking, you absolutely need that detailed partnership agreement. It's non-negotiable. That document protects everyone involved. It outlines how profits are handled, what the exit strategies look like, and, crucially, it defines the silent partner's level of involvement, or, I guess, lack thereof.
Transparency, open communication, a rock-solid agreement. It sounds like a pretty good recipe for success.
It's the best way to avoid those potential misunderstandings, those conflicts that can pop up down the road.
This has been such an eye-opening look at silent partnerships. They're way more common than people realize, and honestly, the impact they have is just massive.
It's definitely a strategy worth considering, especially for entrepreneurs who really want to stay in control of their vision but need access to those resources to really make their mark.
It really gets you thinking. How many success stories out there were fueled by one of these silent partnerships? So if you were starting a business, would you explore this avenue? And what kind of agreement would set everyone up for success? Something to ponder as you navigate the exciting and sometimes daunting world of entrepreneurship. And on that note, that's a wrap on our deep dive for today. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and we'll catch you on the flip side.